Um, Hail and well met, adventurers. Welcome back to another thrilling episode of Hero Sheets. I am your lovely host, Daria. I use she, her pronouns. More importantly and more interesting is today's guest is the lovely and intrepid Hera. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi. I'm Hera. I also use she, her pronouns. Uh, I'm really bad at introducing myself.
It's okay. Do you want to talk about like what you've done on the channel or just like things that you
Yeah,
do?
yeah. Let's go with that. I am playing Katrin on Silver and Steel, the by Mustang's Art, and in the Witcher TTRPG, she's a doctor who recently was lifted of her curse that afflicted her. Yeah. And that's so far everything I'm doing. Yeah.
Okay. Uh,
And I'm studying currently. I now have some more things. It just needs a moment. I'm studying game engineering in Germany. I want to specialize, especially. Oh God, that sounds terrible. I want to specialize into sound design, especially because, yeah, that's something I'm. It's a lot of fun. Sound design and yeah.
No, it sounds cool. My favorite part about Hero Sheets, I think I've said this the last couple of months, is this is basically the first time uh, that we're talking and like our first interaction
Yeah.
together, and it's just both of us stumbling over each other to be like, and this is, um,
Yeah.
you're cool, and I think the thing you do is cool, uh, and that's the show. We're just gonna hop into guest questions. Because that's what we do here. If you want to send in questions for our lovely guests, always feel free to drop them in the chat. But if you want to send in your questions like advanced for the next episode of Hero Sheets, join our Discord server. And there's like a whole chat dedicated to guest questions. This first question comes to us from our lovely producer who is not here today because she had a lot on her plate. But it's from Nova, and it is what is the big thing that you wish would be standard in the tabletop RPG industry slash community, but it really isn't?
I'm gonna flip that question around a little bit because
Okay.
we talked about this before we started streaming. Like we touched on that a little bit,
Oh
and that
yeah.
is that D&D would not be the standard in like at least the English speaking world of tabletop RPGs because I have my problems with D&D and they are not even like I don't even have to get into the like the racism stuff and all of that. I don't even have to get into that to say I have problems with D&D. They start at the mechanics level, and that is especially with 5th edition. I like it to an extent, but I actually one of my favorite characters was born from some of these mechanics. But on the other hand, like I always say, D&D, especially 5e, is at the same time too complex and at the same time also not complex enough, or rather it is complex in the wrong ways. And I wish D&D was not the standard and there was more room for other TTRPGs because there are a lot of amazing systems out there. And in Germany, for example, D&D is far from the market dominator. I am from Germany, if that wasn't clear by the accent I have and everything. Um, And for example, in Germany, we have the dark eye, or as we call it in German, because it is actually a German TTRPG system, das schwarze Auge, which is a lot more popular. Shadowrun is very popular in Germany. The old Warhammer systems and Warhammer 40k systems by Fantasy Flight Games are also quite popular. And especially Shadowrun and the Warhammer systems were how I was introduced to TTRPGs. That's what I played for the first couple of years that I played. I mostly played those. And you do to get introduced to more systems, and I honestly don't know how like D&D is like that popular. I think just systems wise, I would prefer any of the others I played before. Yes, even Shadowrun.
I think like part of the reason why D&D is so popular here in the States, and I could be completely wrong, but who cares, is just because of like how like culturally like we make fun of it a lot in pop culture, and so it's like the only one that was around enough that got dunked on that people just know of. And so like if you ask someone on the street like, hey, what's a tabletop RPG that you know of, they'll probably not know what that means. But if you're like something like D&D, they'll be like, it's just D&D, that's the only one. But that like your whole good answer also answered a question from Leather Bear, my favorite person who sends in questions, which is not true. Everyone who sends in a question is good. I did this last week. There are no favorites, but their question was, what are some tabletop RPGs that you would recommend outside of 5th edition?
Lancer. 100% Lancer, and I haven't even talked about that before because all of the others definitely have problems. I think every TTRPG has problems to some extent. Not all of them are like in everything, but Lancer is an RPG I've fallen in love with recently, and it is a mech RPG where you play mech pilots, and it has a very clear separation between you're in your mech. That means you're in combat and you're doing combat stuff with your mech, and you're outside of your mech and you're just a pilot doing pilot things, like the war role-playing part. And it is very, very crunchy. But the developers of Lancer have supported an amazing fan project that is called ComCon that helps with a lot of the crunch. It is Lancer is absolutely amazing. The rulebook player facing is free, so you can check it out, or just check out ComCon. It's a web app, so you don't even have to download it. And also the art design of Lancer is it hits all the right spots for me. If you like mechs, check out Lancer. It is great. It is amazing.
I'm actually gonna write that down because I'm gathering a list of like new RPGs for me and my friends to play, and so that might be something they're into.
Do you want another suggestion?
Yeah, I mean,
if for something for people who don't want that much crunch, because another system, if you like TV shows like now I don't remember names. Young Justice, for example, like these Sunday morning cartoon superhero shows that's mainly focused on teenagers. Masks is powered by the Apocalypse system, and it really captures that feeling perfectly. So you really get that. It is a lot different from D&D. In that, like, you have to really think differently about the game. It is a very narrative system, as a powered by the Apocalypse tends to be, but it's great for that one thing. If you want to play teen superheroes in an established superhero world, that is the game to play.
That actually like sounds straight up my alley, not gonna lie.
It is amazing. I love it so much. It also, for all of you who like to play or don't like to like directly interact with people, have like some social hindrances or barriers or anything like that, it is a system that works very, very well as a play-by-post game. Due to the nature of it, I found that it just works really well as play-by-post. It is some of the most successful play-by-post games that I've played in. I have not DM'd it myself. Oh god. Maybe I really want to at some point.
Oh, maybe you should see if you can get something here on the channel, because that would be really cool.
Maybe. I'm a big Masks fan. I'm a big Lancer fan. Those two are two of my favorite systems. Most definitely. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to our next question from Sophia, who's also in chat. I love her. If you could make a
Love it too.
fully realized tabletop RPG, what would it look like?
Oh, that's a really hard question.
I know.
Because so I have two. Maybe from my two answers, I gave you one really, really crunchy system with a lot of build options and different ways how to like build characters and your mechs and all that kind of stuff. And on the other hand, a very like more rules light system that is a lot less crunchy and a lot more open. Those are like two things that are hard to combine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my ideal system would be maybe a combination of the two that combines the two very, very elegantly somehow.
Just it works because this is our
Just
fantasy.
it works, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I've recently thought a lot about, because I do like some things about D&D. And I thought about like how to fix D&D, and I have a lot of ideas for that, but in the end it wouldn't be D&D anymore. And
that's not a bad thing.
No, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But again, that is just I'm also a game designer, so a lot of the stuff I think about is mostly in terms of game mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
I also love world building, but when I think about games and how they work, I often like think about mechanics, how they work together. And if like D&D or Lancer are the systems where I think more about mechanics, something like, for example, Masks is something where I actually think, okay, how mechanics directly interweave with the world building and everything. I feel like I've just gone on a ramble there.
That's the
I
whole
hope it
show.
was. I hope it was like clear what I was trying to communicate. Yeah, but I like interweaving, like mechanics should be reflecting the game world as well in some way. Like that would be definitely something in my ideal game system that would be definitely there. And I actually think the ideal game system does not exist, possibly, because just thinking about like my two, I'm currently going through the thought process of that whole, is when I think about these two things, is there are scratching different itches for me. And one of them is really before I started playing TTRPGs, I played a lot of wargaming. That's why I played a lot of Warhammer and Warhammer 40k role playing, because I had an Imperial Guard and a lot of models and all that kind of stuff. So, and there comes that like, okay, I want a tactical game where I can really think about my next move and all that kind of stuff. There comes that from. And on the other hand, I really like writing and imagining characters, and there comes that other stuff from with the more narrative kind of systems from. And I think the ideal system doesn't really exist. But like you can have ideal systems for certain things that you want to do, what you want from a game. For example, Masks for me is the ideal superhero, like teen superhero game. But as soon as you try to take Masks and fit it into something else, like if you want to play Masks but have no adult heroes, no adult established heroes in your setting, it doesn't work anymore. Because the conflict between the old guard and the new heroes is a central part of the system. So if you take away the old heroes, then you lose a whole thing. Like you break apart a piece of the system. And that is a general thing with like Powered by the Apocalypse. There are a lot of different kind of games, but they're not very flexible. They break. If you try to alter them and try to do something with them that they're not built for, they break.
Which, like, I get, like, that makes sense. Like, we built this game to do this thing, and like that's I feel like I say this at every show now, but I talked about this with our guest Vince. about how people usually try to, because D&D is so popular here in the States, they'll try to take it and then force it to do things that it's not built for. Like, I think our specific example when we were talking about this was Heist, because when my first game that I DM'd, I wanted to do a heist thing. D&D is not built for heist, and so you really have to twist and squeeze it to make it do what you want. But there are other capable games that will just do that for you if you just look for them.
I mean, there's a lot of like trash talk on Shadowrun and how complex it is, and it definitely is that, but it works pretty well for heists actually, because that is just how the game is set up. Like you have the information gathering, you formulate a plan, the plan goes wrong every time.
As it should.
every time I played Shadowrun, even like we had one heist actually go perfect. Like one of our shadow runs went perfect, but all the time we were waiting for the other shoe to drop, more or less. We were just like,
it can never be that easy.
And it was an actual bank heist too, and it just went perfectly. And the fun part about it was the bank that we were robbing was basically smack in the middle between two of like the headquarters of two of the largest and most elite security organizations on the planet, but they didn't have contracts with them, so they weren't actually protected by them and had instead hired security24.com and who were basically like paid nothing. So we just infiltrated security24.com, walked in, cleared out the bank, and walked out, and then deleted any record of us ever being there.
That's so good. I think that's my
that was great.
It's my favorite part of like tabletop RPGs is like, this is the problem. Okay, this is our solution to the problem, and like it never goes well. Even when it like goes perfectly, there's like this level of, did it go perfectly? Where are the consequences for what I've done? And I'm currently running a campaign for my friends in which I think if they do something successfully, there will still be a bit of anxiety of, well, we did this correctly, but now there's still consequences, and that sucks. I don't know. Consequences are my favorite thing to just throw at my players. Let's check out another question from the Discord. Let's take another question for Sophia. How did you make Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, the abilities?
Yes.
This is the thing that I was most excited to hear.
That is the answer. Just yes, no. I do know why Sophia is asking that question, because she and her and I.
Sophia and Sophia.
Also some other friends, we have been playing Hades a lot, the game, which is like steeped in Greek mythology, and you can meet the Greek gods there. And one of them is Artemis, and everybody's gay for Artemis because she's such an adorable cutie, and she's amazing. And I actually did start writing one for D&D, a cleric subclass for the Domain of the Hunt, which incorporates a lot of ranger spells, mostly related to tracking down prey, and then some like of the exclusive ranger spells that enhance like ranged attacks and such. For example, I think I had lightning arrow in there, so I'm not super sure about that one. Conjure volley might be better. No, conjure barrage. There's conjure volley is in there too, and conjure barrage. Swift quiver, pass without trace, locate animals and plants, stuff like that. Then I had like additional skills. Obviously, the proficiency in the bow and the ability to use them as a spellcasting focus. And then I just like, for the first kind of draft of it, I just like picked and choose like from some other domains, put it together to like fit everything. I think, however, I would like currently the what is it called? Divine Aid kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not called Divine Aid, but the special cleric thing that they can call on. What's it called?
It's
One moment.
chat will
Channel
tell us.
Divinity. Channel
That's what it's
Divinity.
called.
Channel Divinity. I was thinking like maybe like being currently it's like the one from the war domain that lets you add +10 to you to hit, and I think like something being able to like either call a boar to your aid, like a very powerful like spectral boar or something like that, because Artemis in Greek mythology sent the boar of Caledonia, I believe, because they like the people of Caledonia and Aetolia or something like that. I'm really bad with names. Slighted her, so she was like, "Here, have this angry boar that will kill everyone it comes across." So getting that as aid from the goddess of the hunt to like just 30 to 50 feral hawks basically.
I love that so much because usually Artemis is like associated with owls, which actual owls can be really scary, but like there's nothing more wild to me than a feral hog. Can you hear my neighbor now? That was so
Yes,
loud.
I could hear that. That was really loud.
I
could hear that.
apologize.
It's all good. Yeah, so no matter which system I would build her in, definitely aspects of the hunt in terms of abilities to track down your prey, whoever that might be. The ability to kill your prey, probably with bow and arrow, because that is the archetypical hunter weapon in that sense. And I really like that boar idea, calling it a boar as your help, or I don't know, like a talking back to D&D terms would be like a ranger beastmaster with a boar companion would also be pretty cool, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm a fan of boars.
They
don't get enough love.
I actually put a lot of boars into my home game with my lovely friends. I don't know if they're in chat, but like there are a lot of boars and I love them because they're all, oh, my neighbor is so loud. They're all corrupted with different types of magic, and so every boar fight is a new disaster.
Ooh, do they have like a king boar or something like that?
They do.
Like I'm immediately thinking of Princess Mononoke, and I can't think of the boar forest spirit.
I haven't seen Princess
But they have
Mononoke.
like, oh, you should.
I have it on DVD.
Should.
I have no excuse.
You really should see that because it's an amazing movie.
Okay, movie night.
Yeah, we recently just saw that, but it's my favorite Ghibli movie, so I love it.
I'll definitely try to watch it sometime during break. Yeah, well, I was supposed to watch Avatar with you and Sophia, but then I never picked a date or messaged anyone about that. Maybe we just watched Princess Mononoke first. But yeah, there's a king boar who is just huge, and I love it. It is actually one of my players' old characters' companion animal. That a lot of bad stuff happened to, but we'll deal with. I hope I don't think they're in chat. I could be very wrong, and my friends are just hearing me spill all of the secrets, but like we'll deal with it.
It just increases the anticipation for it.
Yeah, they stumbled upon the boars a little earlier than expected. I still need them to deal with some other terrible stuff first. That being said, I'm just gonna scooch by this and go on to the next question. Again, sent from the lovely Nova. Which one? What's your favorite thing that you've homebrewed ever for any tabletop RPG?
I'm gonna toot my own horn here.
Well,
No, it was not my favorite homebrew that I found, right? Yeah. So anyway, I was supposed to toot my own horn here. Perfect. I made a rebel mage for the wizard in D&D 5e. Yes, it's the rebel mage Vex, exactly. I love the rebel mage. It is a mage that was forsaken by their master in some way, shape, or form, or kicked out of the academy, something like that. Either way, they cannot no longer learn magic the traditional way through like normal study and guidance. Like they haven't like picked up on all of that. It also like goes into like I did basically the initial idea comes from my character that I made, who is called Nyx. And she was the initial idea for that character. She was rejected by the Magic Academy and she ran away from them, but not without taking a spell book from someone and lifting that, because she was like a street child who was just interested in magic and was like, oh, hey, maybe this is a life out of my misery. But they were like, huh, you magic? You can't learn magic. So she was then, I'm going to show you. I'm going to be the greatest wizard of all time. And that's more or less her character backstory and how she came to be. And the idea then came to me was that instead of choosing the spells that I get per level up as a wizard, I roll for them, because she does not like consciously study. She just like has this book from someone else. She doesn't know what's in it, and she like deciphers it bit by bit by bit. And then I played her again as a 2e character in D&D 2nd edition, where I played her as a what is it called, a wild mage with all the wild magic stuff. And then I was like, in 5e, I wanted to combine the two elements, and so I made her a subclass. And the core of the subclass is basically you lose your ability to just learn spells as you do as a normal mage, and have to instead, every time on level up, you roll and have to, or I don't know, draw cards if you have like cards for your spells, or any kind of like random determination method. And these are then your spells that you get. And every time you get a new spell, you also roll randomly the damage it does and the saving throw it targets. So you can get some really, really wacky spells out of that. And some useful spells become less good. Some other spells can become really good. And it's all chaos. It also has wild magic surges in it, which are wilder because they can occur more often. Like one of the features is when you cast a spell of first level or higher, you roll the wild magic die, more or less. And if you roll under or equal to the spell slot level, you trigger wild magic surge. So the higher the spell slot you expend for your spell, the higher the chance to trigger wild magic surge. And later on, you don't have to prepare spells, or you can cast spells you don't have prepared, but with a double chance for wild magic surge. And yeah, it's fun.
That is the coolest thing. I'm so in love with this subclass. I say this most episodes of Hero Sheets because I typically ask the question like, what's your favorite class in race combo? My favorite class has always been Wizard because I love the idea of like, I'm so dedicated to this thing, I'm gonna learn it. But the idea of like, well, I kind of had to give up on learning it for various reasons. But I did take this book and I don't know how it works. And like having the wild magic surges like be burst of like not knowing how to properly control your magic. Yeah. That's just so cool.
Yeah, I think I might actually write my own like wild magic search table to make it more. Currently, it has a lot of beneficial stuff in it. I want to make it like a little bit more wonky, if you will, so that it is like a little bit more reflecting of the way that maybe you misspelled one of the words wrong, and that's why this happens, or something like that.
Oh no, I did something and we lost our video feed, or at least on
Oh
my end, we
no!
lost the video feed. Oh no, we're gonna cut to break real quick. Try to... Nope, I didn't fix it. I'm just gonna fix it on air, because I don't know how to not fix it on air. Oops.
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 It happens.
Oh no. Oh, it's not. It's not doing it. This is why we need Nova every week, otherwise there are extreme mishaps. I'm just gonna... That's Hero Sheets. While I fix this, Hera, do you want to talk about anything in specific?
I can talk more about the Rebel Mage and the other features.
Please go through it. I'm just gonna fix this.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's alright. It's alright. Yeah, and another feature later on is that you get a little bit more control over your wild magic surges. By the way of when you roll on the table for the wild magic surge, you can reverse the roll or the result of the roll. So if you roll a 17, you can either choose the 17 or 71. And yeah, stuff like that. And then the last feature is something that is probably really powerful, but at level 14, I'm honestly one of the people who is like, you reached high level, everything is nonsense now, so go ham. And that is basically because of the way you learn magic, you now have a different understanding of it than any other wizard. So you can understand even magic that doesn't belong to wizards in that sense. And when you see someone else cast a spell, any spell, you can now make a spellcasting check. And no, wait, spellcasting check is another thing. You can make an Arcana check. There we go.
Oh, it's messy.
And then, sorry.
It's fine.
Once you pass that check, you then can cast that spell once, no matter what spell list the spell is from. So in theory, it allows you to cast any spell in the game. And you can also write down the spell as you've seen it into your spell book. So, for example, if you saw someone cast a fireball at 5th level and you didn't have fireball, or you wanted to write down fireball as a 5th level spell, you could do that, but like you would have to write it down as a 5th level spell for you, because that's how you saw it being cast. And also, for every spell you add to your spell book, you always have to roll for the saving throw that it targets and the damage that it does, if it does any damage. And yeah, that's really fun.
Okay, I almost have it fixed. I'm sorry about that. It just goes to show that producers are really important, and it's really easy to mess up this job. Live life, breathe air. It's not Hero Sheets if we don't mess up something on some sort of comedic scale.
It's part of the brand.
Yeah, it really is my brand. I'm really I really like your rebel mage now that I'm no longer panicked about the screens. It's just like a really cool concept and I love it. They did a homebrew thing a while ago that was like, or not a homebrew, unearth arcana, whatever. That was like lore master that I thought was really really cool because it's just uh someone who changes out spell components, which ends up really switching out like the effect of the spell, which I think is really cool. But then like I just felt like it wasn't done to the best of its abilities, and I kind of lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
So
I know what you're talking about. It is partially inspired by that. The Rebel Mage, however, is like a little bit more permanent about the changes that you do. Like when you learn Fireball and it targets strength and does poison damage, then every time you cast it, it does that.
which I just love the like chaotic energy that comes with it because whatever the subclass was called, um,
Wild Mage Sorcerer?
it was a wizard subclass.
Oh, it was called, I
It was
think,
like
Lore.
lore master or something like that.
College of, or I don't know, something.
It
School
like
of Lore? Yeah,
what is lore something? Who cares?
Lore something.
It doesn't have like that chaotic energy of like we're really just, or is it invention? I don't know. Who cares? It doesn't have like that really weird chaotic energy of like I really don't know what I'm doing here, but we're just gonna go with it, which I think embodies a lot about me as a person. And so I would love for something to explain it mechanically without it just being I'm gonna say I don't really like sorcerers, and so to have like a wizard version of that is just cool. I don't know, we're moving on to the next question because I keep losing my train of thought and I feel like I've talked too much. So we answered that one and that one. Okay, cool. Here's another question from Nova. I think it's our last question period, and then we can just like talk about whatever. So what's something that cis people need to know / understand if they are going to consider putting trans characters into their games?
I think the most important thing is to understand that we're also just people, and it's not all about just being trans, if that makes sense. It's like, how to say this best? So, not everything we experience, not everything we say and do and whatever, like, is like fundamentally different from other people. Not everything is about us being trans. And also another thing too is don't make it necessarily about being trans, because we like the especially the negative aspects of like dealing with society and all that kind of stuff, that is tiring. We have that every day. And make trans people happy in your stories. Make them have happy, fulfilling relationships. And even if they have troubles in their relationship, don't make it about them being trans. Make it about other stuff. Make it about them, I don't know, one of the two partners being unfaithful. And not because one of them is trans, but because people are just unfaithful sometimes. For whatever reasons. It's one of those things. I think what show was it? It was a show I watched, The Fosters, yes. And they, what I actually really liked about that show was that they had two trans men in that show, and they were both played by trans men too. So that was just something, seeing that was, oh, that's cool. And they weren't just like, they were like side characters, but they weren't like full on in the background or whatever. Like, it was about definitely about their struggles too as trans people, but also like one of the main characters has like a relationship with one of them. It doesn't end super well between them, but like the real problems between them were like of a different nature. It wasn't, oh, he's trans and that's an issue for her. No, it was like she was okay with it. She was more like she was very considerate, and it was nice to see that. Yeah.
Wonderful. So we're out of questions. We did it. We crushed it. Let's just talk about stuff.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out, by the way, because I talked about the Rebel Mage, and sometimes when you homebrew something, it is sometimes hard to find a GM where you can play it. And I want to give a shout out to Ro, who's also on the Heroes Without Limits Discord server, where I play Nyx, who I talked about earlier, as a Rebel Mage in his game. And I'm really happy about that I get to play my Rebel Mage. And it is fun.
Cool. I just like as someone who DMs, I like homebrew things, but I'm so scared to let them in sometimes. So it is powerful that Ro was just like, yeah, okay, bring this in.
Yeah.
We'll figure this out.
I'm very open to that, and especially if I ever DM 5e again. I recently a game that I DM'd went underwater more or less because players didn't show up. So it was like if you're not motivated to play with me, I'm not really motivated to DM for you anymore. So I canceled that, and now I'm looking I find a new group that I can DM for because I like DMing. I can DM one game. I do know that from experience. I wish I could do more, but I tried that and that kind of failed, that experiment. And so now I'm trying to find a new group, and I have a couple of ideas. And one of them is maybe doing something with 5e, but with a lot of homebrew from my part in terms of how just taking these general mechanics and just shuffling them around a little bit, getting to work on them to make it sort of, I think the idea behind that would be, because it is familiar to a lot of people, have it still be familiar but a different experience and get a different experience out of it.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I think the core issue, not just that I have with D&D, but I think a lot of people have with D&D, is that low-level stuff is pretty deadly.
Yeah.
I come from, so I think my first experience with D&D, playing D&D actually, and I came from Warhammer. I had played Warhammer, Dark Heresy and such before that a lot. And a lot of people like online, oh, it's a very deadly system. And that is true. You can die easily in that system, but we had no player death in that system that wasn't like premeditated, in the sense that we talked, like the GM was like, okay, or someone was like, hey, I want my character to die because that would be really dramatic here, or that kind of stuff. Like always, there was always like some way out, even for NPCs. One of our favorite NPCs was like a random pilot that my character saved in the first mission we ever had, and he became just a group favorite who showed up like in the different games. It was like a constant cameo. Yeah, and so we played D&D for the first time, and just like how the system presents itself, it presents more like a hero narrative to the players. And in Dark Heresy, you're literally nothing. Like you are the scum of the earth, more or less. Like there's literally a character class called Scum in the game. So that tells you, like, when you play that, okay, you're trash, and you know that you're trash. So you don't expect too much from yourself. But in D&D, like, you have a different kind of like starting mindset, and then you walk into like a goblin ambush with your 18 hit points because you're a barbarian. So you do have a couple of hit points, but then you go down like in the first encounter immediately because you got crit.
Yeah.
And that was a very interesting moment because that never happened to us in Dark Heresy. Like we had some moments where the DM was like, okay, I really upscaled that encounter because I didn't expect these guys to be so deadly or dice rolls so be so bad. Like that was the one moment we had where the GM was, okay, yeah, let's retcon that because I just like one shot killed half the party. That was not my intent. So yeah, the three of you are just like currently bleeding out, and the medic that was still alive can patch you back up. But yeah, that was
Go ahead.
D&D is very deadly. So that is something there where do a lot of tweaks to.
Yeah, I went from accidentally killing one party to I've accidentally killed 4, and I don't know what I feel so bad about it. Like the first one was like low level dungeon. They were going I was following the Acquisitions Incorporated book. I think I've talked about it before. But there's a part in the dungeon where there's like a sewer tentacle that you can sneak past, or like if you don't see it though, it gets you, and it literally killed the entire party.
Oof.
And I was just like, oof. And I feel like I almost killed my party today, because they're level 3, which is a little better, but like still not great. And they were fighting a mechanical chimera, and like that almost killed them. And I was just like, ooh, I didn't mean to. It's very easy for you guys to die.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like D&D doesn't have like once your hit points are depleted, there's very little safety net beyond that.
Yeah.
And something like Dark Heresy is basically your hit points is like the flesh wounds, if you will, that you take.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're out of hit points, then you take critical injuries, and those are the lasting injuries. Those are the ones that can kill you.
Which I
But
think
just
is
dropping to zeros is just means you're out of luck more or less.
which I think is
And
a
then it gets nasty.
really cool
Yeah.
idea to like walk away from an encounter with like terrible, or not terrible, but like these everlasting injuries that like D&D doesn't really set itself up for. And you're right with the idea or the notion that D&D really sets you up to feel like you and your party are heroes, but then like you get knocked out so easily. And
Yeah.
like the weak explanation I've heard for it, it was like, well, because adventuring's a hard life, so it's not meant for everyone. And it's like, okay, but I'm playing a fun game with my friends. I shouldn't accidentally kill them the first encounter we have. What is this?
Yeah. Yeah. Hence, I spoke about modifications I would do to 5e, and if I ever DM it again, one of them would be increasing starting HP, but not giving as much HP later on. So HP wouldn't scale up as hard, and you would not have because that's another issue. Like on the one hand, you have basically no HP in the beginning of the game, and the mean look will kill you.
Yeah.
And later on, you can shrug off a dragon breath like it's nothing.
This is
And it's like,
this is a weird thing to compare it to, but like Kingdom Hearts does a really good job of this. At the beginning of the game, you get to pick like what thing you're good at and what thing you're bad at, and if you pick, like, this is my example of it, if you pick, I don't remember which one it is, but you can pick an option that will give you a lot of HP as you level up towards the start, but later levels you don't get as much. I think that's perfect. I think that's the best way to do it.
But we want to talk about less about D&D. I remember that. You mentioned that.
You know, I forget stuff a lot. We've got a bit left of the show. We'll just not talk about it for that much. This is where we circle back to the start of the show where we stumble over each other to be like, that's cool, because I don't know what to talk about here. Uh, uh, I had jokingly before we started said if we finished early, let's just talk about Avatar. So let's just do that honestly. It's a good show.
Okay. Yeah. Have you watched anything of it yet?
Well,
Wait.
I've seen all of it, but Sophia just asked a question, which was
Ah.
favorite setting. So we'll answer that, and then we'll talk about Avatar.
Favorite setting. Ooh, that is hard. So I will say I will talk about one setting that I really like.
Mhm.
I'm very aware that it has a lot of problems, but there's something I really like about it, and that is the Dragon Age setting.
Oh.
And what I really like about the Dragon Age setting is how everything more or less like circles back to how the world is built. Like it's almost like these concentric circles, and it like you start with a question, okay, how does magic work? And then it's like the answer to that is like magic is connected to the fate, and mages can like pull the energy from the fate into the real world and form it. And then it's like, okay, what is the fate? The fate is the dream world. Everyone goes to the fate when they dream, and demons are manifestations of like, and it just continues on, and everything like circles back to how the magic system of the world works, where also the central conflict lies in the world, like in the Dragon Age setting. And I like that kind of world building where it's like, okay, this is like a core concept and it circles back to this, and this everything is connected more or less.
Mhm.
For example, then you have the dwarves who cannot cast magic and who also don't dream. Hence, they're not, because they're not connected to the fade, so they can cast magic, but have other abilities. They're resistant to magic due to that, and all that kind of stuff. And I really like that when settings do that, this circling back, and you like see things and can connect the dots yourself, and it makes sense. I like that.
That sounds really cool. My favorite setting is, I feel like I said this before, it's the Feywilds, and I think Sophia will agree with me on this. It's just so cool. All of like everything that I've read about it really tries to emphasize like how bustling with magic it is, and like how deadly everything is. It feels like a more dangerous like place to put my players. And so like if you go to the Feywilds, you immediately go, oh, this is bad, this is real bad. I don't, it's I just like the immediate like panic that it kind of causes in my players when they realize that that is somewhere that they are. But also, I'm so bad with descriptors, just how innately powerful this era, or like this place is. Sophia says it perfectly in chat. It's whimsically deadly. And it's just so cool and fun, and it's not the same sense of like panic or stress that you would get sending your players to like the dread plane, which is a whole nother like situation. It's just cool, and I can have fun here, and it'll be light and beautiful and bustling, but also really deadly. And there are like specific rules that you have to follow in certain place. I don't know, it's just cool.
Yeah. I have to say one of my favorite monsters in D&D are hags,
Yeah.
because they are they remind, like me personally, they remind me a lot of like the grim fairy tales, and something like Hansel and Gretel and such, which are German tales. So it really hits like a right spot. So like these like old crusty hags that are basically just out there to get you and eat you or something like that. There's something about that. Just it's creepy and it's cool, and yeah.
And it's so easy to or at least it's easy for me to go through and just like find inspiration for things for my players to encounter. Like you mentioned Hansel and Gretel, which would be a perfect like situation to put my players into, of like, oh, here some kids went missing, I don't know, and then you go investigate the forest and you find breadcrumbs and then the candy and now you got to deal with these hags, or I don't know, it's cool and fun, and I love it, which is why I love the Twilight Grove. it's such a good it's such a good period. um so Avatar, I don't know. There's no good transition.
I actually, I mean, we can stay on this topic. I quite like it because I just remembered something that is, I haven't really gotten to it yet because, well, things in the world happened which kind of drained on me.
Yeah.
And that is, I had this idea of about a game that because, well, game design and so on, about a game where if I wanted to pitch it to someone, it would be like Stranger Things, but would with Grimm's fairy tales in 18th century Germany or 19th century Germany. And the core like inspiration for that is a German poem by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe called Der Erlkönig, or in English, The Owl King, which is about, there's different interpretations about it. You can certainly read it a bit. Yeah, it is a poem. It is very dark. And basically it's about a boy who is ill or sick. He's definitely dying, who is being rushed to home or somewhere where he can taken care by his father on a horse during night. And the boy continues to see the Owl King and the Owl King's followers in the trees and so on and so forth, and the father does not see them. And I do like this dichotomy, and I wanted to like, oh, there's something here where you could like make like a fairy tale game about children that still have this connection to the world of magic, the world of the of fairies and such, and the adults who no longer live in this world really of fairy tale and magic because they have other things to worry about, and like day-to-day survival, like a war that is going on currently, stuff like that, and like make a game out of that. Very rules light. Kind of, you have two stats, magic and obligation or something like that. I don't know. I have a couple of ideas. I don't even have a title for that, but I mulled over that for quite a bit.
That sounds so cool, and I love games where you have to balance between two like ends of a scale of like, I talked about this last week or last month or the month before, where I said Honey Heist is my favorite tabletop RPG. So a much more whimsical version of that, of like balancing between bear and what was it, crime or whatever, or in this case, like whimsy and like adulthood, or like that
Yeah.
kind of stuff is so cool. Because if you're in that like middle spot between the two, I think what you see or what you don't see could be very frustrating from a
Yeah.
player's point of view, of like you catch glimpses of things where like maybe one of your party members like straight up sees a thing and is like, what do you mean you don't see this thing? And it's like, no, I don't, there's nothing there. I don't, it's good. that's peak, that's perfect.
Yeah. Game about growing up.
I think I wish I had enough brain power to fully realize my whole thought, but I don't. But I would like to point out we're at time for this month's episode of Hero Sheet. I thank you so much, Hera, for joining us, or joining me, whoever, being on my show. Where can we find you? What do you do?
You can find me under @HeraHex on Twitter, and I sometimes, maybe in the future, stream again on Twitch. I think I'm also HeraHex here. Let me just check. Yes, I'm HeraHex here too. But yeah, if I ever stream, I kind of have the idea of like streaming some games. XCOM 2 is kind of something I kind of want to do.
That could be fun.
Because it's fun, and like naming people, naming the soldiers after people in chat, and because I haven't actually played that yet. To its completion, at least, I did start it, but I have like War of the Chosen and all that DLC stuff. Yeah, or I did see today that Warhammer 2, Total War Warhammer 2 is currently on offer on Steam.
Ooh.
And I'm a big fan of Skaven, and it lets me play Skaven, so maybe streaming some of that. Me playing some Ratze and conquer everything as a rat. That's fun.
Honestly, here on the channel, we're big fans of rats.
I love rats.
They're cool and cute, and they can't swim if they're holding knives. Are you guys playing Silver and Steel this week, maybe? Or is that next week?
It would be this week, but I don't know, because Nova usually sets it up, and she doesn't. She probably won't have internet until then. Because of the move.
I see.
So I don't know. I'm leaning towards no currently. Probably not.
So maybe
it might work, because currently Rhiannon is knocked out cold and not in any like way, shape, or form to. She kind of got knocked out last session at the end of it. I have to patch her back up. Because I'm the doctor. Good thing they have one of those.
Exactly. So maybe in the next couple of weeks, we'll see you return on Silver and Steel. And that's the show. I forgot, how do I close this? Join our Discord server if you're not already. Follow us on Twitter at HWithoutLimits. Also, I'm on Twitter. Catch me tweeting about the weather for the next 3 months. And with that said, safe travels, and I will see y'all next time.